Hey guys, a quick repeat on extrusions. So in order to shape our model here, um, we can, of course, use extrusions to add topology to our object. So the short keys will be displayed down here. Um, so let's say I want to get an extrusion here. We can extrude separate elements like an edge, but the problem is, as I said, be aware that you have to turn backface culling on here in the view, in the shader options. We only get one side always because polygons and faces are only one-sided, because in this case, the normal is facing this direction, so that's from which direction we can see the polygon. On the other side, it's simply non-existent. It's see-through. So that doesn't really help us unless in some cases you want to build a wall that you will never see from the other side. So let's undo that. Um, Sometimes it's wise to extrude vertices because then we can create um, uh, face out of it. But again, what we usually always extrude only are faces. So let's say we have this face selected, we hit extrude, that is what we get. And extrusion always works immediately by default along the normal, um, that the direction of the normal the face is pointing at. So if I have this, the normal facing this direction, I press E, I extrude like this. If we have multiple extrusions, it's the average between the two normals. And that is not always a wise thing to do. Extrusion always works with movement and not with scale. So keep that in mind. Extruding in with a normal extrusion creates a really weird shape with two faces on top of each other because it creates a new face going in and the original one is still up here. So you get this weird shape that doesn't really work in rendering because they're sharing this exact same uh, place in space. Yeah, so don't do that. There's another option for that I'll get into. And very often what you do is to press E and then you actually forget about it, or you press E and you say like, oh no, that didn't work, and you press Z. What's happening here is that now this whole thing is still an extrusion. It's still there in a lot of cases. Like I pressed that properly here, so that is the entire thing that got rid of that. But in a lot of cases, if you do this or you extrude and cancel the movement operation, every extrusion is two steps. E, extrude to duplicate basically the faces, and then the movement here, that's step two. If you cancel step two, the extrusion is still there, but it is exactly in the place of the original. So in order to get rid of this, select all, press M for merge, and merge by distance. Now these vertices here have now been welded together and they form one shape and not two sitting on top of each other. All right. So we have a couple of other options, and that's why I want you to get used to the Alt E panel, the alternate extrusion alternatives or alternative extrusions. Alt E. Press Alt and E, and you get this little menu. We have extrude faces, this traditional one. We have extrude along normals, extrude individual faces, extrude manifold, and extrude repeat and spin. Those two don't really work for me. They're kind of weird. Um, so with when you do a normal extrusion like this, I showed you this earlier, Uh, that's okay, but maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want this one and this one to follow their individual normals. So I have these selected now. Alt E, extrude individual faces, and I get this. This one and this one and this one extrude individually. Even if they're close together like these, Alt E, extrude individually. What I have then, when you, these are actually, they seem like one face, but they're actually separate tubes that I now extruded. Let's go back into, so here you can see they're actually two separate elements that create their own, hey, that create their own four-sided cubes here. Extrude along normals is also very interesting. So let's say I have something selected like this, and I extrude along normals, this one, I get this. Now this looks a little bit awkward. So what you can do is down in this menu here, you can offset even. And here with the offset setting, you basically change the width that you have. So for some adjustment, later on, proportional editing affects the surrounding vertices as well. So I would not use that. That gets very confusing. And mirror editing is pretty much, well, what it does, but it doesn't fall into account here because the mirror editing doesn't really matter in this case, because it's mirrored already. But the Alt-E individual faces along normals and the normal extrusion via key E-press is perfectly fine. Another thing is the I just extrude a couple of these. I like to extrude this one, do a couple of loop cuts to have more topology. And let's say I want to create something that is an indentation here. Like I want these to extrude in, but I don't want to have these weird, again, when I extrude these in now, the top faces here don't go away. I just extrude in and have a double face down here that is sitting on top of everything else and creates really weird shading and rendering effects. So the way to do that properly is Alt-E, extrude manifold, and then you get the result that we were aiming for. So that's about it. In a lot of cases, when you extrude, and I use this quite often, I extrude, but instead of moving the thing, I cancel the movement with the right mouse button. And then I scale it out and extrude up. Gives me a shape like this. Or I can extrude, cancel the movement, scale out, but then grab the thing that gives me a shape